Today, I really have the honor to invite Jessica to join my interview, talk about her work, her life experience. I know Jessica from about 2 years ago. By that time, she wrote a book, Emmanuel and Hedgehog, which can be found on Amazon and other online bookseller channel. That was really a great book. I was so impressed by her work. And that leads me to know more about her. I know Jessica has a very interesting, unique experience. She has been an English teacher in Uganda, and she lived there for 2 years. And when I read about her work, I definitely can feel and discover some of the interesting details and it seems to connect to her life experience back in there. So today I want to invite Jessica to talk about herself and also talk about her most recent work, Emmanuel and the Monkeys. It's really interesting book. I got this book 2 weeks ago. I read to my kids. They all love it.
Okay, well, my name is Jesica Nkuaga, and like you said, I was an English teacher overseas for several years. 2 of those years were spent in Uganda, and those 2 years were very memorable for me, very touching for me. And so I wanted to share some of the experiences and the memories. And what better way than to share them with children by writing. And I have an interest in working with children already. And so it just made sense to me to write children's books. And I suppose you could say I also have this inheritance from my grandmother, because she also had written a children's book. So perhaps it's in my genes that I was meant to write a children's book or two.
Read this very, very lovely quote in the end of the book. Exercised at most kindness toward every living creature. I find this is very interesting. I wonder if you can talk about a little bit more about your quotation in the last page and why you think you picked this topic, animal and the boy, as a theme for your picture book.
Well, nature is everywhere in Uganda. You are surrounded by nature. It has a really big influence on your life. And when I think about the memories that I have of Uganda, they naturally gravitate towards nature. I remember the monkeys in the trees in front of our house, and they used to climb in the trees, and we could hear them howling in the trees every morning for a long time. And that was very touching to me because it was a sound that I had never heard before. And it was really fun to kind of watch them swing in the trees and play in the trees. And then one day we heard a lot of barking and howling, and there was a real incident where there was a problem between the monkeys and the neighbor's dog. And then we found the baby monkey. We saw that it had been injured and that the dog actually had attacked it. And after that, unfortunately, the monkeys never returned to our area. So they must have been afraid of the dogs. And I was sad after that because I always wanted the monkeys to be there. So that was one of the most memorable, touching experiences that I kind of witnessed. The power of nature and the events that happen in nature. And so that was why I decided to write about the monkeys specifically. And I wanted to give it a positive ending. I wanted it to turn out the way that I had hoped, which was the monkeys came back. So in regards to the quote, I think that animals have always played a part in my life. I grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and we had to care for the animals every day. And I'm touched by this quotation, caring for living creatures. And I think it's really important that, if we find an injured animal, that we try to take care of it and nurse it back to health as much as possible. So it touches me, and animals have an important place in my life since childhood. And I tried to observe the local daily life as much as possible. We had to walk down a long path to get to the main road. And then once we got to the main road, we had to flag down a motorcycle to take us into town, because we didn't have a car at that time. And it was my husband and I. And when I was walking down that path, I would see people in the fields. I would see my neighbor in the fields. And one of the things that were growing in that area were sweet potatoes. And so that was the first, sweet potatoes and yams as well, because they're very similar. And that was one of the first times that I had seen these growing, and the way they planted them was a very unique way with different mounds. And so that left an impression on me as well. Partially, growing up on a farm, I'm interested in farming and things like that. And then, as someone who cares about my food and where it comes from, I think it's also interesting to see where and how they were growing their food. And so that's why I tried to include those points about daily life into the book. More freestyle when I was in college, which was many years ago. And when I looked back at my drawings, and I had just used colored pencils because that was the easiest medium that I had back then. And I looked back at some of my drawings and I thought, I could use this in my children's books. And it's a very simple, non-expensive way to create the drawings. I don't have any formal training in drawing apart from a community education class that I took actually last year, which was Introduction to Drawing. But otherwise, I have several drawing books that I've ordered off of Amazon to help me learn how to draw. And so it's a work in progress. I'm learning as I go. I look at a picture, I get ideas here, I get ideas there. I have a book about how to draw animals. So I think it's coming along, and it's, in a sense, what works for me and what I've gravitated towards. Well, I do have one more book in the Emmanuel series that I would like to create, and it is going to be called Emmanuel and the Butterflies.
Sure.
And I particularly have a very fond interest in butterflies, and I also have the ability to draw butterflies very well for some reason. So I'm working on Emmanuel and the Butterflies, and I hope it will be a beautiful book about transformation.